I never lose focus on what the core of our business is.
There hasn't been a single real belt on the line in 2 months.
And what's more important is what's at stake.
Where the fuck are all the championship fights?
Other than we're going to put on what we've always done.
The fear that everybody had going into this deal was that the quality of the cards was going to get worse because we were taking away pay-per-views and going to a streaming model. And you know what? We were fucking right. The UFC on Paramount era had a lot of people very hopeful. We wouldn't have to pirate UFCs anymore. We wouldn't have to deal with buffering streams. And for $7 a month, we could watch pay-per-views with all of our friends. I personally feel like the Paramount era started off well. I mean, you had Patty versus Gaethje fight for a participation belt. You had Sean O'Malley beat a guy he was supposed to beat. You had the only interesting women's title fight in like years fall apart. And then a bunch of pretty decent scraps, actually, on the undercard. And, of course, you know, Josh Hokich's post-fight speech was hilarious if you caught it live. But if you didn't, the UFC basically scrubbed it from the internet, so good luck trying to find it.
He's a deadbeat father, not to one kid, but to 9. Waldo Cortez Acosta, you absolutely suck! And that's the bottom line. And P.S., Brittany Griner is a man!
But UFC 325 was kind of I guess. I mean, you had Volkanovski do the exact same thing he did 6 months ago, except easier. And then a bunch of other fights in the card, which, while entertaining, don't actually mean anything in terms of title pictures. You had a bunch of lightweights fighting over the middle of the rankings, and then a bunch of unranked people trying to get ranked. And then after that, there's a drought of fights that are interesting. You have a bunch of fight nights that don't mean a whole lot. The most significant thing to happen out of the fight night last weekend was Almeida getting cut after he got beat by a guy who wasn't even ranked. Looking forward, what we got? We got Strickland versus Hernandez and Spivak versus D'Elia. What other interesting fights are there on those fight nights? And I mean, if you look ahead, we've got like what? A Brandon Moreno fight, a Marlon Vera fight. What else do we have? There's no significant fights that'll change the rankings, that are going to change the title elimination picture. It's nothing for months. I mean, look at UFC 326. It's exactly what I'm talking about. It's a bunch of fun fights that don't actually mean anything. Sure, you've got Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway fighting in the main event. Basically, a bunch of guys fighting for bronze, fighting for third place in the rankings. What else is on the card? The Battle of the Unks, Moicano versus Ortega. I mean, cool, but neither of them is going to fight for a belt next. They're both 2 or 3 wins away from doing that. RDR and Bohalio should be a fun fight, a cool scrap, but again, there's a log jam at welterweight because we have no title fights. You're going to have a position where all these contenders are in a log jam in the top of their divisions because the champions won't fight. At least the lower weight classes had their last fight late last year, so they'll be turning around hopefully in like May or June. But for the upper divisions, for light heavyweight, for welterweight, what the fuck are they doing? Why is Chimaev sitting on his ass? His last fight was in October. Does he need to take 6 months to do a cycle of steroids and get off? Like, what's going on? And after UFC 326, what do we have to look forward to? A Josh Emmett fight? After that, we actually get a cool fight night, right? Lerone Murphy versus Movsar Evloev. I mean, MVP's on that card too. It'll be fun to watch him do point karate and MMA, I guess. But that's like the end of March that we're looking at before there is anything close to a title elimination fight. And if you go even further to like April, basically, to like March 28th, you've got Adesanya and Pyfer, and then you look at the undercard of that fight night, and there's no one on it. Why are we in a position where we have a logjam in 2 different divisions at the start of a new broadcast deal? That doesn't make any sense. I thought when you start a new broadcast deal, I would think you want to pull out all the stops to get as many people to pay for the events as possible and get their subscriptions loaded. So then if you're going to do that, why don't we have actual title fights? Why do we have an interim belt? Why do we have a rematch that we didn't need to see? And then after that, we've got a bullshit money fight belt, and then nothing. There is one real belt in the 4 months of the beginning of the year. I think this is the only time this has happened in months. Years even. I can't think of a time in my over 6 years of watching this sport where we've gone this long without having a title fight. We used to get title fights every month, and it wasn't even that long ago. Like 4 months ago, 3 months ago, we were getting a title fight a month. We were getting a pay-per-view a month. It would have 1 or 2 belts on it. Now we can't even get a single belt. We can't get 1 fucking belt on a card. We used to have 3 belts on a card, right? When Trevor Whitman was coaching, Gaethje Usman and Rose, they did all those fights on one card. We had 3 belts on one card. Now we can't even get a real belt on a card. Now we got to deal with the interim belts and money fight belts. Like, okay, sure, again, Volk Lopez, I'm conceding that Volk Lopez happened, but nobody wanted to watch that fight. The only reason that fight happened is because the UFC wants a champion that speaks Spanish. And they didn't even get that. The guy lost twice. It didn't do anything to Volk's legacy. It didn't add anything to Volk's legacy. It makes Lopez have to go get 2 or 3 wins before he's fighting for a belt again. Why the fuck did we make that fight? Add on top of that, there's like no ranked fight, no title elimination fights for the first 4 months of the year, notwithstanding Movsar and Lerone. I mean, outside of that, what, you really think Adesanya is going to get a title shot if he beats Joe Pyfer? Fuck that. This is such a weak start to a new era, and as a fan who's actually paying for this shit now, I am disappointed. The fear that everybody had going into this deal was that the quality of the cards was going to get worse because we were taking away pay-per-views and going to a streaming model. And you know what? We were fucking right. It's not even Dana White's fault, because Dana White isn't even in the company anymore. Dana White's a public figurehead. He spends more time at the blackjack tables than he does in the actual company. Hunter Campbell, what the fuck are you doing? Why can't we get more than one title fight in a card? Fuck that. Why can't we get more than one title fight in a month? Matter of fact, why can't we get a pay-per-view a month, man? Why is February dry? Why don't we have a single pay-per-view in February? Or a numbered event, I guess, now. So, I really just wanted to rant this video. I just wanted to give my opinions on the opening of the UFC Paramount era, how disappointed I am as a fan who's actually paying for this shit now with my hard-earned cash. I do not like the direction that the first quarter of this year has taken, and I hope that it's not indicative of the rest of the Paramount era, because if it is, I might have to cancel my subscription. I'm not accepting this, and you shouldn't either. So that's my thoughts on the opening of the UFC Paramount era. If you like the video, give me a hype if you want. Much appreciated, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.